Removing and replacing parts for the HP OmniDesk Slim Desktop S03-0000i. Tools you need. How to replace the side access panel. Tools for the task: torque screwdriver. Removal. Loosen the captive torque screw that secures the side access panel to the frame. Slide the side access panel toward the back of the computer until it releases. Remove the side access panel from the computer. Replacement. Position the side access panel on the computer. Slide the side access panel toward the front of the computer until it locks into place. Tighten the captive torque screw to secure the side access panel to the computer. How to replace the wireless LAN module. Tools for the task: Phillips screwdriver. Before you begin, remove the side access panel. Removal. Remove the Phillips screw that secures the wireless LAN module. Remove the wireless LAN module from the socket. Remove the plastic cover from the antenna connectors. Disconnect the antenna cables from the module. Use caution to not damage the cables. A damaged cable can degrade performance. Remove the wireless LAN module. Replacement. Reconnect the antenna cables to the module. Replace the plastic cover over the antenna connectors. Insert the module into the socket at a slight angle. Replace the Phillips screw to secure the wireless LAN module. How to replace the RTC battery. Tools for the task: a flat-bladed tool. Before you begin, remove the side access panel. Removal. To release the battery from the holder, squeeze the metal clamp that extends above the edge of the battery. Lift the battery from the holder. Replacement. Slide the replacement battery into position, positive side up. Press down to secure the battery. How to replace the front bezel. No tools are required to remove or install this assembly. Before you begin, remove the side access panel. Removal. Gently release the 3 tabs securing the front bezel to the computer. Lower the front bezel and remove it. Replacement. Align the bottom of the bezel with the computer. Press the bezel into the computer to secure the bezel using the 3 tabs. How to replace the front bezel screen. Tools for the task: a flat-bladed tool. Before you begin, remove the side access panel and front bezel. Removal. Using a flat-bladed tool, release the tabs that secure the screen to the bezel. Remove the screen from the front bezel. Replacement. Align the screen with the front bezel. Press the screen into the bezel to secure the locking tabs. How to replace the system memory. No tools are required to remove or install this assembly. Before you begin, remove the side access panel. Removal. Press outward on the 2 latches on each side of the memory module to release it. Grasp the memory module by the sides and pull the module out of the socket. Replacement. Match the notch on the module with the tab on the memory module. Carefully slide the memory module into the socket at an angle and then press down to lock it into place. How to replace the CPU fan hood. No tools are required to remove or install this assembly. Before you begin, remove the side access panel. Removal. Pull the tab on the top of the fan vent hood away from the computer chassis to release it. Using 2 hands, pull the 2 tabs outward to release the lower half of the fan vent hood from the CPU fan. Remove the CPU fan vent hood. Replacement. Place the fan vent hood into position over the CPU fan. Press down on the vent hood until the two thumb tabs click into place. Slide the top half of the vent hood toward the frame until it clicks into place. How to replace the power supply unit. Tools for the task. Torque screwdriver. Before you begin, remove the side access panel. Removal. Remove the 3 Torx screws securing the power supply unit. Disconnect the 2 connectors from the motherboard. Remove the cables from the routing channel. Disconnect the remaining connector from the motherboard. Remove the cables from the guide. Press the tab at the base of the power supply unit and slide the unit back. Remove the power supply unit. Replacement. Place the power supply unit into position. Slide the power supply unit into the computer, locking it into position. Replace the cables under the guide. Reconnect the connector to the motherboard. Place the cables into the routing channel. Reconnect the 2 connectors to the motherboard. Replace the 3 Torx screws. How to replace the CPU fan. Tools for the task. Phillips screwdriver. Before you begin, remove the side access panel and CPU fan hood. Removal. Disconnect the connector from the motherboard. Loosen the 4 Phillips screws on the fan. Remove the fan by pulling it up and away from the CPU heatsink. Replacement. Position the CPU fan onto the CPU heatsink. Tighten the 4 Phillips screws to secure it. Connect the CPU fan connector to the motherboard. How to replace the CPU heatsink. Tools for the task. Torque screwdriver and thermal grease. Before you begin, remove the side access panel, CPU fan hood, and CPU fan. Removal. Loosen the 4 captive Torx screws that secure the heatsink. Remove the CPU heatsink by pulling it up and away from the computer. Replacement. Remove the thermal grease from the heatsink and the processor. The thermal grease should be replaced every time the heatsink is removed. Using a thermal grease applicator, apply a small amount of thermal grease to the top of the processor. Place the heatsink into position. Tighten the 4 captive Torx screws that secure the heatsink. How to replace the CPU. No tools are required to remove or install this assembly. Before you begin, remove the side access panel, CPU fan hood and CPU fan, and CPU heatsink. Caution: do not touch the pins in the processor socket. Removal. Pull the locking lever away from the processor and rotate the lever to its open position. Raise and rotate the processor retainer to its open position. Carefully lift the processor from the socket. Replacement. Position the processor so that the marking on the corner, usually a triangle or an arrow, matches the corresponding marking on the socket. Carefully place the processor in the socket. Lower the processor retainer. Press the locking lever down until it clicks into its locked position. How to replace the SSD. Tools for the task. Phillips screwdriver. Before you begin, remove the side access panel and CPU fan hood. Removal. Remove the Phillips screw that secures the drive. Pull the drive out of the system board connector. Replacement. Align the drive with the system board connector and insert it at an angle. Replace the Phillips screw that secures the drive. How to replace the antennas. Tools for the task. A Phillips screwdriver and a flat-bladed tool. Before you begin, remove the side access panel, front bezel, and the WLAN module. Removal. Gently guide the antenna cables through the frame. Remove the cables from the routing channels. Remove the 2 Torx screws securing the antennas. Remove the antennas. Replacement. Place the antennas into position. Replace the 2 Torx screws securing the antennas to the computer. Reroute the antenna cables through the frame. Gently guide the antenna cables through the frame. How to replace the motherboard. Tools for the task. Torx screwdriver. Before you begin, remove the side access panel, front bezel, CPU fan hood, wireless LAN module, and CPU heatsink. Removal. Disconnect any remaining connections from the motherboard. Remove the 6 Torx screws that secure the motherboard. Slide the motherboard to the side and remove the motherboard. Replacement. Lower the motherboard into position. Slide the motherboard into place. Replace the 6 Torx screws that secure the motherboard. Reconnect the connectors to the motherboard.